Fast forward, I came back to England 1979, 42 years, then developed diabetes because, as I said, it runs in my family.
Yeah.
And I was determined then, yes, I can understand where my colleague here is going down the route of, hey, medication and tablets and injections and all that. And I can understand that to a certain point. But if you are leading a life and in a sense where your immune system is very good, that's the starting point. I want black people to understand. You must develop a good immune system.
Yeah.
Eat well, physical activity, rest well, etc. The immune system is such that if it's not compromised, then you're able to fight off infections, bacteria, viruses, etc. And that's the starting point for us as black people. We gotta cut out the junk food, the fast food, the whole heap of fry up, and eat like I do with my wife and daughter, a healthy, well-balanced diet. So with that in mind, we had the vaccine, myself and my wife, and my daughter has had hers as well, and no side effects whatsoever, none whatsoever. First dose and second dose. I know some people, and whatever medication you take, if you look on the jar or the bottle or the thing, with it will say 1 in 100,000 might have this side effect or might have this adverse effect or so on. And I accept what is being said that yes, some people have had blood clots and so on. But we're talking a very minute amount of people. 30 million people in Britain have had the vaccine, and the side effects in terms of those who have had whether blood clots or so on have been very few and far between. And it's a case of, I'm going to go real Jamaican. Here we are in Britain, we're being allowed to have the vaccine. There are some countries in the world, want it, can't get it, and get it, no want it. We're in a situation where it is available to us, and I would rather not be the selfish type and say, no, I'm not going to take it. I'm thinking, well, hang on, I might have the various antibodies inside of me and pass on this to other people. It is still an unknown virus. Coronavirus has been around, just let your listeners understand, for quite some time. That's not new. It's the COVID-19, the disease, which is new. But I take the approach, even though I've had the vaccine, when I go to the supermarket or when I go to the gym to do my physical activity, I still wear a mask because I am wanting to protect not just myself, but the other people around me.
Even from the cold or any other thing that
yes,
they've got.
indeed. So, yes, I understand there's this climate of fear, and I'm gonna put the government aside. For me, I too don't have much trust and faith in the government. For me, I sit on a lot of august bodies to do with the coronavirus. These are scientists. I have a lot of respect and admiration. Within my family, there are lots of doctors and nurses. And there are scientists there who have developed, some people are saying it's developed in record time. That's because so much money was thrown its way to get us to get something which would be a benefit to the whole world, globally. And with that in mind, I would rather take the advice of the scientists more than government officials, because the government, 1 minute they say this, as you rightly said, and they change their mind, and it goes, and people are confused when they see things that the government says. But go to sensible websites where you're dealing with either the National Health Service or the National Improvement, NHS Improvement England. Go to the websites where you can get factual information. I get on average every day, Emma, 30 WhatsApp messages. And all they are is just junk, fake, phony, false information.
Like propaganda.
Yes, and as soon as I start reading it, and some of it comes from what I know are very bright, intelligent people. And as my grandmother used to say to me, you might be bright, but common sense is another thing altogether.
And common sense is not very common to the common folk, unfortunately. One thing that I can hear as a common denominator is social media and its impact on both decisions. I feel that on TV, there was a lot of fear-mongering. We were in a space where we believed we could go out without masks. Then we was at a place where we believed we had to go out with masks and gloves. But Caddy, you went through an experience while pregnant where you had to go to the hospital and they actually told you you cannot enter with a mask during that time. Do you want to speak on that, and how it influences your decisions today?
Once again, if you did see me on TV, I went to the hospital when I was 8 months pregnant, and this was a women's hospital, and they told me I had to remove my mask before entering the hospital, or I could not have my meeting with the consultant. When I asked them why, no one could give me an answer. New policy. I don't just say, yes, okay, yes, massa, new policy. I want to know why, especially when all the staff, security did it, but all the staff had their masks on. Now, I was refused entry. Security was called on me because I would not wear a mask, even though I had a clean mask present as well. Eventually, I got through the hospital because I removed my mask. Was in a room full of pregnant women with no mask. The doctor told me, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Please put your mask on.
Right.
So after that, I had various interviews, and obviously I went on various websites, again, World Health Organization, doing my research and why I feel like I needed to wear a mask. Yeah. And I look at research, not just from the UK, but also other countries globally as well, to find out, what are they doing to protect us from COVID. And again, it goes down to research. The government told me and tried to make me look like a fool because I said I want to wear a mask, and they told me, nope, you cannot wear a mask. So that's, that again.
Did that put a fear in you in that room, not wearing a mask?
It put a fear on me because I'm with other women that were pregnant. We were in the vulnerable category, and we had this COVID-19. And we didn't know much about it. Yeah. Found out 2 days later there was 4 medical staff that had passed away from COVID-19.
And
from
with
the
that
hospital.
Being said, you're still anti-vax, even though the evidence in front of your eyes of the fear that it brought. So could you understand when people get vaccinated, that fear is alleviated?
I feel like the fear is deliberately put on us from the government, from the media. They're trying to control us using fear. They've always controlled people through fear. How do you get a large number of people to do something you want them to do? Fear is the best way to do so. And I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm kind of like pro-choice. Right. I'm like, if Tony Kelly wants to have the vaccine, that's his choice.
Yes,
Indeed.
But so there's a thing of pro-choice.
But the ones that don't make them feel so alienated if you don't have the vaccine. If I haven't got the vaccine and Mr. Kelly has, then the vaccine should, I don't know, it doesn't actually protect you from COVID, but it reduces some of the risk of death and illness.
With that said, we're going for an advert break. As we get back into the conversation as to who feels like they have pro-choice, which we learnt in the last discussion, and those who are pro-choice and don't want to be vaccinated, and those who are pro-choice and do want to be vaccinated. I'd like to come over to you, Caddy, and ask you, what has been the role of social media in influencing your decision? And I'd like to ask the same question to you, Tony Kelly.
Realistically, social media has played a part in my decision. Not a big part, but it has definitely played a part. Why has social media? Because it's the voice of the people. There's certain people that have taken the vaccine and had side effects. Where do they go? Because the BBC will not pick it up. Other institutions won't pick it up. So they go to social media and share their stories. There's been people that have taken the Pfizer vaccine, and I don't know if you've seen the magnet videos of people thinking that they've got a magnet that are attached to their arm, and metal and cards being injected into them.
Well, what would be really interesting is those in the building right now who have been vaccinated. I have a magnet right here.
Take it out.
Do you think that, especially if you've seen somebody who's been vaccinated and you took a magnet and it didn't work for them, what would be your perception? And I do encourage people not just to believe the social media hype, because sometimes when you go to prove these things or disprove these things, you think, what weird.
Yes.
But hold on, it don't work though. What have I been watching? What 80 people have been in on this conspiracy theory. So what would your reaction be if a magnet actually didn't stick to somebody's arm?
I don't think they're doing it on every single person. I think they're experimenting with people. Right. And so yes, I will buy a magnet and start walking around with my magnet, because I think that's a very interesting. And when I saw it on social media, And it wasn't just one person, it was a group of people from different countries, different parts of the world, saying that they had a magnet that was being worked on the same spot where they had the vaccine.
This is very important. Social media has highly and significantly influenced your decision today.
I wouldn't say highly, it's just brought to my attention another reason. If you look in the Bible, it talks about the mark of the beast and all those things there. It's all written. It's all written already. How do you get a large number of people to do something you want to through fear? And the Bible has it right there in black and white.
Mr. Tony Kelly, what has been the role of social media in influencing your decision to be pro-vac?
Well, as I said earlier, I do get a lot of the social media stuff coming through to me on Facebook, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and various other forms, Instagram, etc. And once I start reading it, and then I notice there isn't any science backing what the person has said,
right?
Or what I just bin it, and I would be saying to people out there, do the same, bin it. If you start reading it, you actually start believing the hype and processing it and thinking, this must be so. I bin them. I don't bother to, and I do not forward them on to others.
Right.
I think it's unfair to do that because it's not scientifically based in my honest, humble opinion.
Right.
So I tend to say, no, if I'm not believing in it, why should I pass this thing on to somebody else? And the whole issue of the fear, the phobia that it generates amongst all sorts of people is such that I would rather not go down that route at all.
What would be your message to anybody who is on the fence as to, shall I be vaccinated? Shall I not? Because they are now looking at the age groups of 18 to 30 upwards.
My daughter is in her 30s and she's had her first one. It's this question of to be or not to be. Shakespeare wrote that play, in Prince Hamlet, and that is the question. Should you or should you not? It is going to be down to personal choice, personal preference, or what we call client self-determination. You can carry a horse to the water. You can't make that horse drink.
Right.
And I can tell you anecdotally, because I do a lot of work out there in the community, I have come across adults who have actually been vaccinated. These are senior citizens who have been against the wishes of their children and grandchildren. They've gone and gotten the vaccination and have come back and remained stum or only told them when they have returned. Because what worries a lot of people is what you see happening. I am the secretary of the Jamaican Diaspora UK.
Right.
And we have a link with the Jamaica High Commission in London. And if I tell you, Emma, the amount of people who have passed away within the black community over the last 12 months or so, it's an alarming rate. Now, as my wife said to me, and I like her take on it, she said, if they were offering the vaccine firstly to black people, she would have doubts about that.
Okay.
And that has never been the case.
No, it's been the most vulnerable in society.
Elderly, frail, and so on, and then coming down the line. So if they had offered it, saying, because one chap in when they were testing it out, two scientists in France were saying, oh, they must go and test the people in Africa. You remember that?
I saw that?
Yes. And I thought, how dare this man
Exactly.
to think that we are guinea pigs.
Yes.
So those are the sort of things which I am dead set against. But having said that, thinking of Britain with 50-odd million people living here, they didn't go down that route. But a lot of the people who have died within Britain are from the African Caribbean people or who have succumbed to the virus in some way or other, acute in hospitals and so on. So it's a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned.
With that being said, we have Mr. Auden Allen on the line with us right now. Can you hear us, Mr. Allen?
Hello, how are you? Peace, man.
Peace and blessings. You used to be the chakra man as I've known you personally. Chakra man, talking about the chakra juices, the yellow juice, the green juice, the red juice, the purple juices, understanding everything going in and the powers that understanding that inner work does for the human body. With that says, Mr. Allen, are you pro-vac or are you not so happy to be at the front line of getting vaccinated?
I'm definitely anti-vaccine. I'm definitely anti-vaccine. I will not be getting vaccinated.
Mr. Allen, I'd like to ask you your reasons why and then the influence of social media on your decision there.
Um, I mean, I would say that it's not so much. I don't really have an influence of social media. That's not the reason why
Yeah,
I've made my decision to be anti-vax. Um, it's just that I don't really have. I don't really have a particular trust for the system.
it's the
I
system
don't
and the
feel
lack of
like
trust again.
yeah, I don't feel like the system has my best interest at heart. I think the system has its own best interest at heart,
Hmm.
and I think that many of us, it's too easy for us to do as we're told, without having any info or any research
Yeah,
as to what's in the vaccine and what we're putting into our bodies. We will just do what we're told,
yeah.
and I'm a person who I'm a firm believer in my intuition. I
Right,
believe that we all have a power of intuition inside of us, and it's brought us this far as human beings. And if I follow my intuition or I go into my intuition, it's just like, nah, I don't feel any positive feelings when it
right.
comes to this vaccine. So what I've done, I don't want to be ignorant, and while I don't want to be ignorant, I also want to respect the people that believe in it. So
Right,
if my decision has made other people uncomfortable, I will definitely respect their space.
right.
However, I've took the turn to work on my own health,
Yes.
make sure I eat good,
Hmm.
spend a lot of time in nature,
Yes.
work on my immune system,
Mm.
have less acidic foods and more alkaline foods, and I seem to be doing fine.
That is very true. And I would like to really touch on your view of health might not be your grandparents' view of health or your mom's view of health or how they managed their health. And so my question to you would be, do you understand the dangers of coronavirus as it has run rampant around the world? What's your understanding of the dangers?
Well, I don't actually have an understanding of the
Right.
dangers. I haven't had a personal experience of it. Like I said, I'm not trying to be ignorant. I have not seen it. I have seen people with, the symptoms of the common flu, but what I've seen on the dangers is just stuff that is portrayed in the media
Yeah.
and is portrayed online. And my mom always says the news is entertainment and entertainment is the news. So,
Yeah.
obviously you can see when people put a selfie on Instagram, they can easily change how they look. They can
Mhm.
change their appearance. They can remove their blemishes. So we're living in a world that's digital and a world that can be altered. I'm not saying that this is what it is. This is purely my opinion, and I'm not basing it off any facts. But I haven't personally seen that, so I'm not going to be too quick to believe it. If I had a personal experience, which could possibly happen, then that may change my views. But I have a very big family.
Mhm.
I've been in my big family. We spend a lot of time in nature. We are
Yes.
very free, and we're good. I also work in a school. I'm
Right.
good. You know what I mean?
What would be your advice to people who are your age group and want to get vaccinated and those people in your age group who don't want to be vaccinated?
I would just say, definitely do your research.
Right.
Don't make the decision just based on something that you've heard or because you're following the crowd. Do your research. Find out what's in the vaccine. Find out what the vaccine's all about. Find out how it can affect your body.
Yeah.
Don't be so quick to jump into it because you don't really know what could possibly happen. You don't know what the side effects are. I have done some research on the side effects,
I was
and
going to ask you.
when you do take the vaccine, there's a list of incredible amount of allergic reactions and negative side effects. I'm all about listening to my body. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? So if my body's having a very, very negative reaction to something, then I really have to question that. Do you know what I mean? But when I eat fruits and I eat my vegetables and I eat my superfoods and my roots, I don't have negative reactions to that. I have a positive reaction. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yes.
like I said, this whole coronavirus situation has given me an opportunity to spend more time with self, to spend more time in nature, to focus on my health, and just focus on what I need to do instead of focusing on what the system requires of me or what the world requires of me or social expectations or the world's view of success. Now I'm back to me and myself and taking care of this temple. And I'm a firm believer in the Creator. I'm I'm a firm believer in nature, and I think that the creator and nature has far more education than a lot of these scientists and doctors. So yeah, man, I'm going to follow my inner nature, follow my intuition,
I
and
just
be
want
guided by that.
I just want to ask you one more question. If it was a
Yeah.
case of staying in the country because you are not vaccinated, or traveling the world because you've been vaccinated, would you still be anti-vax?
I would still be anti-vax unless I found more information. Like I said, it's one of them situations. If I trust somebody, then I would go and eat. I would eat food. I would have a drink at their house. You get me?
Yes.
But if I don't trust you,
Yeah.
I have no trust in you, and you offer me a meal or
Yes.
you offer me a drink, I'm not going to eat the food and I'm not going to drink your drink because I don't trust you. So it doesn't matter whether I want to travel or not. Do you get me? I have integrity. I don't have that trust. I don't feel convinced. So I'm not going to be quick to eat your food and drink your drink
And
until I've got more information.
a lot of trust needs to be built. Mr. Allen, you have been an essential part of this conversation. You are influential in the community, and you're very, very highly respected by me and many other people. I want to thank you for calling in and taking your time to do so. Thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing?
No, of course.
I just want to say one more thing. So to all the people that are listening, that, they believe in Corona and they believe that it's real and they believe in COVID-19 and they want to get vaccinated, I don't mean no disrespect. I believe that as human beings, we have the power of belief. So, whatever you believe, I respect that. And I was on the bus the other day, and there was a woman, an elderly woman on the bus, and she was like, "Have you got your vaccine? Have you got your mask?" Because I didn't believe in it, I decided not to be ignorant. I moved out of her space so that she could feel comfortable because she believed in it. Me being next to her caused her a high level of discomfort, and a high level of discomfort can actually have an effect on your immune system.
It will affect
I
you.
have respect for people's beliefs, even if they don't coincide or they're not in alignment with my beliefs. So I don't mean no disrespect, but I stand firm on what I believe in within myself.
And that is something that's coming up. It's called pro-choice. And I do believe everybody has their beliefs and their choice. But at the end of the day, one last question. Do you believe there was coronavirus pandemic that actually happened? Or do you think that it's a part of a big conspiracy theory?
Well, I always believe that, that the system the media has always got a lot of distractions. Sometimes when you're being pushed to focus on one thing, like, for example, maybe Black Lives Matter, for example, if you're pushed to focus on that, sometimes you have to ask yourself why. If you're focusing on that, what else is happening behind the scenes? Sometimes it can be a big distraction.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can be distracted by the noise over there because something's happening over here.
Yeah.
5G was a massive thing. Everybody was worried about 5G. It was like, oh my God, 5G, what's happening? Everybody was ready to fight against it. Black Lives Matter came in, COVID-19 came in, lockdown came in. Nobody cares about 5G now, you know, and all the masks are up. And I'm not saying that 5G is necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just saying there's a lot of things happening, and we have to pay attention, and we have to be aware of our environment and how our environment is affecting us, and not always feed into the bait that gets thrown into the sea. A lot of us see the bait and we run towards it, you get me? But when we run towards the bait and we think we've got some food, you don't realize now you've been hooked and now you're fish food, you get me?
So illusions for trapping and hidden in plain sight. We want to thank you, Mr. Allen, for your call in. Very, 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 very interesting what your point of view has been. I'm going to say bye-bye and throw it over to Tony Kelly for your points of view on what has been discussed.
Peace.
Bye.
Right. I'll start off with two of my favorite sayings from my childhood, growing back up in Jamaica with my grandparents, etc. Prevention is better than cure. All of us know that saying, okay? And better to be safe than sorry. And as I go back to saying, as I reiterated previously, I'd rather go on the side of caution,
Right.
and have the vaccination, which both myself and my wife and my daughter have had, so that we can fight whatever things are in it, antibodies, etc. And I will stress, as was said earlier, it is pro-choice. It's client self-determination. Whoever decides to have it, but we need to when I think of the number of black people, and this is a black-run station,
Yes.
who have succumbed to the vaccine, to the virus rather, by dying or ending up in hospital. I think of Honorable Counsel Wade Lynn, how he was in a coma for the best part of 5-6 weeks, and others who I know who have suffered tremendously and are living with long COVID now,
Yes.
with symptoms which mean that they'll be having to take all sorts of things for the foreseeable future. I think to myself, I would rather err on the side of caution.
Right.
And I go back to when I was growing up in Jamaica, having the TB injection and the measles injection and
Right.
all these injections that were given to us as children. We had no say in the matter. You're in primary school and the nurse comes around with,
Yes.
and the scars are on the hand
Yes.
still to show it. But yes, we have choice now. They're not offering it to children. It's all to adults, and it's going to be up to the adults to, as the gentleman who called in said, do your research. Go to
Right.
tried and tested websites, not fake, false, phony websites. And do your research. And also, the more people, of course, I wouldn't have been at the front of the queue. And I wouldn't have expected black people to be at the front of the queue when the vaccine just came out and the vaccination. But the more people who are having it, very few people have side effects. And I'll go back to saying that, yes, some people do have side effects, as with any other medication. But they're few in number compared to the over 30 million people who have now had the vaccine. So one needs to take all those things into consideration, I would say.
I hear something very coherent, especially as people wanted the whole world to open up. They said, let us out, but don't vaccinate me, but let me out. And just coming out into the public and seeing people in pubs and inside and enjoying themselves. That's the power of the masses vaccinating. And if we all want to get back into society and live the life we was living, those who are pro-vac, go get your vaccination. Release us all. Because I'm hearing those who are anti-vac just want to be informed from a trusted source that will make them feel comfortable and confident that this thing is for them in a world where there's been a lot that hasn't been for us. Right, we're taking you to break. We want to thank Mr. Allen, who was called, Tony Kelly and Caddy Wilson in studio with us.
Birmingham's #1 for African arts, culture, and Afro edutainment. 98.7 New Style FM.
Our special program regarding vaccinations and awareness of. This is the special show, and we would like to say a big thank you to Near Neighborhoods program and Rabia Latif for sponsoring this New Style special. It is very important that we have open discussions from people on both sides of the fences, and a few things have been coherent in this discussion: a lack of trust and the need to feel safe amongst families, communities, and walking around the neighborhoods. I feel personally that joy of being out, breathing that fresh air and exhaling with no mask. And I think, thank God, those who are getting vaccinated feel safe around me, and that I can feel safe to walk the streets. So, Mr. Tony Kelly, if you would like to speak just a little bit more on being pro-vac and what that means for you moving forward.
Thanks for that. I have done for the last 9 years, this coming June, a lot of community events, trying to engage and enable and empower in particular the black community to eat more healthily, to do more physical activity, because that's one of the issues. We spoke about the comorbidities, and one of them is high blood pressure, and another is diabetes, and another is heart disease, and also lack of vitamin D. But let me just put this out there for all to know. My colleague here, Caddy, spoke about systemic racism within the National Health Service, within various other forms.
Yes.
That cannot be denied, that there is systemic or institutionalized racism, and therefore the socioeconomic factors which do come into play but have to be borne in mind about, for instance, I go to a lot of health conferences and seminars.
Right.
And they talk about hard to reach communities.
Yes.
Listeners, I'm going to bang on, and I want you to get this out there and get the message across. Ask anybody when you hear the words hard to reach communities, are these people on Mars, Jupiter, in the rainforest, in the jungle, in the deep blue sea? I could go on Mount Everest, because it is patronizing and condescending to refer to us as black people as hard to reach.
Yes.
Say, of course, marginalized,
Right.
underserved, historically neglected.
Oh, Lord.
But don't patronize and condescend my black community by referring to us as hard to reach. None of us are hard to reach. And if Muhammad cannot go to the mountain, then the mountain must go to Muhammad. And if I, for argument's sake, can do 150, without exaggeration, community events per year since early retirement 9 years ago on the health and well-being agenda, free, Tony Kelly Diabetes at hotmail.com. Don't give me that argument of hard to reach communities.
Yeah.
Here we are on New Style Radio, a black-led radio station, educating the pros and the cons, the fors and against, in terms of this particular virus that is impacting and affecting the world. So we're doing our bit in terms of awareness raising, and that's what stations like this are about. And I implore and beseech others to tune into these events, do your research, and get both sides of the coin, because there's always two sides to every story. There's no right side and wrong side, two sides, and it's up to people to then make their decisions.
I hear a lot of people saying that they have caught the coronavirus. How do you know? Well, I've lost my sense of taste. It's not like any other virus, but everybody seems to deal with it in their own way, and unfortunately, people will die as a result of having COVID. And so, therefore, Caddy, would you say that that proves from personal experiences, people who have actually said they had the virus, got over the virus, as opposed to those who have died in the hospital and then it's been written that this is the cause? Have you experienced people firsthand who have and got through saying that they had the virus?
Okay, well, COVID-19 was introduced to us, I believe, around January, end of January 2020. When that was put out there, a lot of people came on social media saying, you know what, I think I had that back in October, but we didn't know what it was about.
Right.
In March 2020, when I was ill,
Right.
and I went to Dudley Road Hospital, and this is when COVID was rampant right at
Yes,
the beginning,
yeah.
and they said, oh, you might have it, but we don't want to let you through the doors. So we just test your oxygen and we send you home, call your doctors, get some antibiotics and iron tablets.
Right.
But I lost my sense of taste, I lost my sense of smell, but there was no test available.
Right.
So I think there definitely is a correlation between the fear of having it and also what it does to your body, your mind, if you do, because if people had it 3 months beforehand but we didn't know it existed, I think the fact of people thinking, oh, I've got COVID and all those related issues, the high blood pressure that can give you, the stress,
Right.
I think that can also be a contributing factor as well.
Right.
A lot of people said they could have had it but weren't tested because testing wasn't available at that time.
And then testing was a high priority. Like, we aren't testing people yet. We're not testing people yet. And then it's, we need to vaccinate now. When's the vaccine coming? And this race for vaccine. And it was very interesting to watch. It was like watching the horses, but we raced towards the vaccine. And now we're here like, well,
It's a case of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. And I too, like yourself, I know I had the virus. Nobody knows your body better than
Yes.
you do, okay? And I am always a fit, healthy person. I do Pilates every week, yoga every week, badminton every week. Wait for it, ladies. I do Zumba every week as a man. I go to a Zumba class and I'm the one dege man in
I'd
the
like to
Zumba
see
class.
that.
And people laugh and say, what are you doing here? I say, well, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to do movement and and get the heart ticking over and so on.
much like Mr. Allen.
Yeah. People call me Mr. Motivator the second. You remember?
Yes,
that,
I remember that leotard.
Yeah, with the, well, I don't wear, I don't wear the
remember
leotard
tight
or the
shorts.
different color socks. But on a serious note, I do a lot of physical activity. I walk everywhere, and I encourage people to develop habits, whether it's with gardening or form a walking club
Very
or
important.
climbing the stairs or so on. It's the lethargic, sedentary, couch potato lifestyle
Right.
that we as black people lead. We're going on a plane to America or Jamaica, and you sit down in the plane for 8 hours. Come on, get up and walk up and down in your seat
very
and so on.
important.
The whole issue of physical activity and movement. In Jamaica, they have this thing called Jamaica Moves, which is getting people, even although the sun hot out there, it's getting people to do physical activity. Even when I go to do my events at elderly people's homes and residential homes, I say you're not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but just get 2 cans of baked beans or plastic bottles with water in each hand and just bring them from your lap up to your shoulder. Literally doing that. I ask in my events, how many people, and I've been doing these events for 9 years now, was born in a motor car? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
So none of us were. So why the dickens we're going just 100 yards down the road? We have to start the car engine and go in the car to wherever we want. Your feet were made for walking. And I'm about enabling and empowering people
Oh, 100%.
to do these things that they can do. Queen Elizabeth Hospital was a classic example whereby they used to have in there the double Mars bar and the double Kit Kat and so on. And then there are patients going into the hospital and a nurse is saying, oh, and by the way, you need to lose some weight. And I say, excuse me, when last did you look at yourself in the mirror?
Oh.
And the people say, but you're a bit cheeky faced, aren't you? I say, no. It's called pro-social modeling. You as the nurse, the doctor, the whoever, need to lead by example. So this is why I'm this weight. At one stage I was 14 stone. I couldn't go around be telling people, oh, do this, do that, the other, and then
don't
not
do
be an
yourself.
example. So it's not do as I say, but as I do. So that's part of the issue as well.
And you was a strong example for your daughter
Exactly.
being pro-vaccination and getting your vaccination and showing I feel like all the elders have been leading at the head,
Yeah.
saying, you know what, I'm vulnerable, give me this vaccination, and nothing has happened to them.
Yeah.
In fact, care homes and people can go and visit their elderly
Elders
knowing
now.
that they have been put at ease, and we can see them. Caddy, was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, you said that you think you had the
I know I
had
had
the
it.
and obviously that was before you had the vaccine.
Yeah, that was way before. That was from March last year. That I know for a 2-week period. I was down, I was low, I had flu-like
could feel
symptoms.
it, yeah.
I didn't have any loss of taste or smell, but I knew my body ached all over.
Yeah.
That
But-
has never happened before to me.
But it's fair to say then, because of your diet, your healthy lifestyle, you were able to overcome that without the
Absolutely,
vaccine. Now.
absolutely.
Without the vaccine,
Yes.
so it could be a strong correlation between your health and how the coronavirus 19 actually responds to your body because of the healthy lifestyle that you lead.
Yes, and doctors
so
and
that,
yes,
that
that
definitely needs to
people
be
have
looked
told
at
me that in
rather
terms
than
of-
just let's take a vaccine, because you may have the antibodies, you may have, you look fit, you look well, but before you had the vaccine, you overcame the virus
That's-
because of your healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
Many didn't, and I guess that was the fear. Many people aren't going to just catch it and overcome it in any way, shape, or form. Those with cancers, those with sickle cells, those who HIV,
Underlying health
conditions, and then the fear on top of that. So, getting the vaccine is leading the pack in alleviating some fear. Socially and across the world, that people feel that people have taken the vaccine and now this is a safer world to be in. I guess there's one thing that we can guarantee: we're born and we're going to die.
Right, at some
and
point.
I do feel that I want the listening community to hear this post that I wrote the other day. I said, "Dear future, I'm coming. I asked God to bless my path, and he rolled out the landscape, a global landscape at that." And I do want young people to really grab hold of the world is your oyster. You must go and educate yourself with the ability to travel, gather knowledge from everywhere. England is not just the world, neither is America, even though they think they are the whole world. Ignorance is bliss, but to be in the know is a power. Not just information from literature or theories, but to go out and experience different lands, different earth, different smiles, different ways of living. And nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever restrict you from doing that. But again, one guarantee we have in life: from you're conceived, you must pass. And so in between that time, live. And we're going to go to ask the public. If you have an opinion, we're asking for one sensible caller to call in. We want to give you space to speak. And in the meantime, we're going to go to a track and wait for you to call. Star Radio here with a special program today dealing with awareness about the vaccine. We are sponsored by Neighbourhoods Projects and its Birmingham coordinator, Rabi Latif. We want to thank you so much for sponsoring this program, and I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation so far. We want to ask Caddy, what has been your initial reactions to things that have been said and your standpoint? Has anything moved? Have you stood firm? Have your views grown? What's your insight?
Well, I definitely like to say I'm always up for discussions. I'm always up to talking about these issues. And I think having open dialogue with people, that's the first step. You know, we definitely need open dialogue, different ages, different generations as well, to understand different viewpoints. And like I said earlier, pro-choice, I will stand firm in my pro-choice. I have nothing against anyone that wants to take the vaccine. I have nothing against anyone that doesn't want to take the vaccine. You know, so I stand firm in my decision that I don't want to take it yet. I want to see more people take the vaccine who, you know, want to. I want to see what the outcomes are in 12 months time, 18 months time. And, you know, and not only just in general, but how it is actually working in people of color, black people. You know, you need the guinea pigs to do
I
need the guinea pigs to do what they need to do first. And I would just stand back and watch.
And Tony Kelly, if I can get your initial feelings and how you would like to respond to the discussions that you've heard so far from the anti-vax.
Well, for me, at the very start, Caddy said something about her biological father passed away from COVID-19. Did I hear that right?
That is very correct. But before you just elaborate, he actually caught it from the hospital.
Yes,
he actually was living in the Bahamas for 10 years, working for the government, came to England in December. In April, he passed away, and he caught it from the hospital.
Well, sorry, yes. I really feel your pain in that regard. And that for me brings it so closer to home that you've had somebody nearest and dearest to you. Your beloved father is no longer here. And that for me would be my starting point. If I were in your shoes, apart from expressing my sympathy and my condolences to you, but empathy as well, saying, hang on, had I been in your shoes and seeing what you went through with your dear father who was in the Bahamas and had no issues here and comes here and gets this virus in the hospital, I'm afraid in your shoes I would be first in the queue to say, what happened to my father ain't happening to me, his daughter.
Well, what happened to my father is part of the systematic racism that I believe is in the healthcare system. He actually went into hospital, had to have 2 COVID tests because he was having an eye operation, and they both came back negative. Yep. After he had the operation, came back positive. So we know he caught it from the hospital. But then again, putting patients on COVID wards unnecessarily. You know, we heard of that scandal in Dud City Hospital and other hospitals. It goes down to, again, systematic racism within the hospital because he shouldn't have caught it from the hospital
in 2021
in those conditions at all. And it makes me even more believe that I do not trust the health system. You know, even if you look at, you know, things beyond COVID, like black women are 5 times more likely to die from childbirth. Why is this? Why is this? No one's running to help us and lead the way in this. But when it comes to this vaccine, they've got people from everywhere, the churches, celebrities, take the vaccine, take the vaccine. No, it made me distrust the government even more because of that.
And being a pregnant woman at the time with all this information circling in the media, how did it feel for you to fear having COVID during that time, or go into hospital and catching it? And
it was the fear of catching it was very high. the fear of the vaccination is even higher.
Okay.
Wow.
That is very
interesting.
powerful to say, but the fear of the vaccination is even more powerful than catching it. And like I said, I think I had it earlier on anyway.
Is that fear stemming from systematic racism that you've and lack of trust as a core issue as to fearing taking the vaccine?
Yes, but like I said, I don't even take the flu jab. I don't need to. I try and lead a healthy lifestyle. So if it's it's not broken, if it's, don't try to fix it. You can't fix me, Don't try and inject me with something that you're not 100% comfortable with. And the government aren't 100% comfortable with the vaccine and the side effects, because again, it's too soon to actually know the full effect of what it will have.
A terrible mistake was made when some National Health Service clinical commissioning groups, for instance, your father was put on a ward with other COVID patients, and he didn't have any signs of COVID or the coronavirus. That happened to my good friend Marcia Lawrence Russell. She took her dad, his diabetes, and she took him down to City Hospital, and they were about to put him on a ward with COVID patients. And she said, but no, he doesn't have COVID. What I'm saying to listeners here, as my grandmother would say to me in Jamaica, you need to open your mouth. You're an assertive person, but there are lots of people out there that just go with the flow. No, open your mouth, be assertive, ask questions, take somebody with you if you're unable to express yourself in these situations, if you have to keep hot. Because a lot of people now who need hospital appointments are even fearful of going because they don't want to catch the coronavirus or COVID. So they're missing appointments by the hundreds and thousands.
Yeah.
And that has to be looked at as to why is that. It's to do with, oh my gosh, if I go there, they might put me on a ward with people who have this disease and so on. Because as we know, it is quite contagious and so on. But people need to be assertive and get on with it.
Right, more after the advert breaks as we take you into a special discussion on vaccinations. Live in the studio with your special vaccine awareness show with myself, Emma Mendez, Caddy Wilson, and Tony Kelly. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we want to thank the Near Neighborhoods program, Rabi Latif, for sponsoring this special today. We want to reach young people, old people, people who are pro-vac, people who are anti-vac, who are listening to this show today, just to make sure that your views are heard, that your voices are heard, and that you go out into the community and face space. And what's the next one? Face, hands, and space. That has been the mantra for us for over a year and a half now. But it seems like there is light at the end of the tunnel. And when I say light at the end of the tunnel, that means globally as well. What is this light at the end of the tunnel, and what has it come in the form of? A vaccine. And that is just the truth today. Many people aren't aware that being vaccinated is causing a mass calm and a feeling that there is an end in sight. But there are those who are saying, not me. I will not get vaccinated. And we want to just look at the pros and cons of that attitude. Caddy, you're here saying that you are not quite sure, you are pro-choice, but you are not looking to get vaccinated. Whereas Tony Kelly, you are here talking about yourself, your wife, and your daughter, or the whole household safely vaccinated and able to come out into the community. I would like to hear your views, Caddy, on those people who are young and pro-vac, and what you think that would mean to society with that attitude.
If you're young and pro-vac, that's your choice. Go live your life, be happy, travel the world, don't walk in fear anyway.
Yeah.
Live your life to the fullest. So I haven't got really much to say to those pro-vac specifically. It just in general, we only have a short time on this earth. So, definitely, one thing I can say about the pandemic is that washing your hands and that extra step of hygiene that so many people needed anyway.
Okay. I'd agree with that.
The washing your hands more than ever. putting that antibacterial soap on. I think we needed that injection in our community, not even in our community, throughout the world, full stop. I think having that extra hygiene level can only be beneficial to the world and to each other.
Definitely. The things that are here to stay, like at-home meetings,
Zoom meetings and all them things. I love it.
Remote learning. We have somebody on the line that we will be patching through. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi there. What's your name?
It's Madupa Manijo. Hi there.
Hi there. How can you add to the conversation that we're having?
I was asked to call in and talk about the coronavirus itself, the nature of the virus, what we know about it, and also what the vaccination can do to help us to prevent more people getting unwell with the virus.
Well, what's important with the information that you have, and you're the consultant doctor?
Yes.
Wonderful. And there are conspiracy theories that I'm sure you want no part of and you refute. Could you talk to us about those negative attitudes towards the vaccine, your insight, your information that the public need to be aware of?
The main thing for us to be aware of is that, firstly, the virus is real. There have been theories about 5G and whether or not the coronavirus was actually fabricated. And we know and we can see the devastation the virus has caused across, not just in the UK, but across the entire world. And even now, we are aware of various variants of the virus that we are battling with. So the reality is we've come a long way since March 2020, or even earlier than that, the end of 2019, when we began to see the initial effects of this virus on Wuhan in China. It's spread quite a lot now across the world. And so the reality is it isn't about 5G, it isn't a fabrication. Coronavirus is real. One other thing to bear in mind as well is that the virus itself, as we all know, because not everybody will have symptoms, so about 1 in every 3 persons will not have coronavirus symptoms. So that makes it very difficult for you to know if you got it, or if your neighbors got it, your friends got it. So when we share cars with people, or we are all inside an enclosed house or place together, the risk is more if people have the virus and they don't know they have the virus. So one of the things that we need to bear in mind is that this virus is real. It's a new virus, although it's a new form of the coronavirus. We've known about coronaviruses before, and we've known that previous coronaviruses, just as this one, can change very rapidly, and they do that because they have to be able to survive inside the body of the host in which they move from person to person, to be able to last longer within the environment or the population. So really and truly, we need to take virus seriously. As it changes, as it tries to pass longer within the population, and it changes the form in which it presents itself, it gets more and more difficult to be able to test very quickly those who may have newer variants, as we call them, new forms of the virus. So one of the things that we know is that this virus spreads mostly through the air and through contaminated surfaces. So when people believe, for example, that they don't have to wear a face mask because they don't necessarily see the virus, or they're not somebody who doesn't have the typical symptoms, the fever, the cough, and loss of taste or smell, then it means that we're not taking the virus seriously. So a lot of the conspiracy theories about whether this virus is real, I think by now, because a lot of us need to accept that it is real, and it's now within many societies, not just here, but worldwide. So as we go about our day-to-day business, we just need to be more vigilant. We don't want not to have a normal existence, but we have to be careful. We have to wash our hands more. We have to wear our face masks when we're within places where there are crowds. As whenever we're indoors, especially now as the rules are relaxed more and we can go out a lot more. We just need to be more vigilant and more careful and look after each other.
Very true. Miss Consultant, would you be able to explain to the listening community about herd immunity, what it is, and why it would be necessary?
So herd immunity in itself, in relation to coronavirus, has not been fully confirmed yet. The concept of herd immunity occurs when within a population you have enough people who have had the vaccine and developed the immunity, the antibodies, to stop them spreading that infection to other people because they themselves become immune and can't be infected by it. And so you get more people, possibly again, not being able to contract that illness because more and more people have become immune to it. With coronavirus vaccines, we know that they currently stop people from developing severe illness. So the sort of things we saw happening in January when lots of people were in hospital and lots of people were sadly dying. What these current vaccines do is they stop a lot of people from falling unwell and from ending up dead. However, they're not necessarily known to stop or protect people from infecting other people. We know, though, the good news is we know the vaccines can reduce transmission for up to about 50% of the people who have the vaccine. The difficulty, though, with herd immunity is that you have to be able to actually protect people fully from getting an infection for you to be able to develop herd immunity. The current vaccines don't stop you necessarily from getting the virus, but they stop you from becoming severely unwell or from dying, which we know particularly has affected a lot of people from Black and African ethnic minority age groups, ethnic groups. So when we talk about herd immunity when it comes to coronavirus, I think it's still early days and we just need to be a bit more cautious about using that term in itself for coronaviruses. Herd immunity has worked well with a lot of other viruses and vaccinations. When we get enough people vaccinated within the population with vaccines for measles, for other infectious diseases, we know that we develop enough people who will not get that infection, who will be well protected and therefore not pass it on to others. With the current vaccines for coronavirus, we know transmission can reduce by up to 50%, but we still need to be cautious because we're not quite there yet. And we currently, as well, as we get more and more people getting their first dose, their second doses, as we go through the age groups, we are learning more about the vaccines and how effective they are. We're also making sure that they are able to stop us from contracting these new variants, which so far it's good news. It appears that current evidence suggests that if you've had your second dose, then you're protected from illness and from death from the variants that we're currently looking at within the UK. But we still have to be careful. And at this point in time, it's a bit too early to be talking about herd immunity in relation to coronavirus and the vaccine.
Thank you so much for that explanation. It made so much sense as to why herd immunity is the time that we're living in right now and why so many people should be vaccinated and stop the spread. There is a disproportionate effect of this coronavirus on African and Caribbean people. Do you have an explanation or an insight to give the listening public who are from minority ethnic backgrounds who feel that there is a disproportionate effect that has been publicized that's happening to our people? Do you have a insight as to why this is, if this is, or how to think and go about protecting oneself if this
Thank
is?
you very much for that question. And it's a really, really important question. And I'm sure many listeners have, wondered. We've all read in the media, we've read reports that have been published recently about the effect of inequalities, amongst the Black and African Caribbean minority ethnic groups, across not just, the UK, but worldwide, but more particularly here in the UK. I'll give an example. If you look at, for example, people who have most of the underlying conditions like diabetes and heart disease, which we know are worsened, by COVID-19. They tend to be people from the BAME community. So there's something there, that existed already before COVID-19 and which COVID-19 has made even more visible. So we're talking about inequalities around underlying health conditions, health conditions which sometimes remain undiagnosed. We know that people from BAME backgrounds are usually up to about 6 times more likely to have diabetes, many undiagnosed. So we have a lot of, I think, awareness to do around this. How do we know, whether we have a family history of diabetes? How do we know that we need to be on regular assessments? How often do people know to go to the GP? Sometimes are people able to go to the GP quickly enough because of the kind of jobs they do? So sometimes that's another type of inequality. The type of jobs that people from such ethnic backgrounds do tend to be the jobs where people are lower income. People are more on the front line, so may not be able to work from home. So the period when some people were furloughed or were working from home, some of these people were more on the front line doing those jobs that meant they were more exposed and more at risk, to COVID-19. So these are some of the evidence that are now coming out that we're looking at, and it's raising awareness amongst the communities that have been affected the most about how can we reduce these inequalities and how can we support, more people to be able to, bridge the gap and gain perhaps some more of the socioeconomic status and influence that's need to be able to not have to do those sort of jobs, or perhaps how can we protect them more if they're going to be in those sort of jobs. So there was, I think, earlier on in the pandemic, reference to access to the personal protective equipment, which we call PPE, and how people in certain frontline jobs didn't necessarily have access readily to PPE to protect them whilst doing those jobs. So there are quite a few of these inequalities that we know and underlying conditions and things like that. The other, I know, issue that has been highlighted is vitamin D. I just wanted to touch on that because I know that's something that's come up quite a lot in conversations, and just highlight that vitamin D deficiency in itself has been something, again, that we've known about among people from certain ethnic backgrounds. And the NHS usually recommends that from about October to March, every winter month, around that time, they recommend about 10 micrograms. That's one tablet usually you could get from the chemist of vitamin D for people from those ethnic backgrounds, people from with darker skin and perhaps backgrounds where they would need more sunlight because of the melanin on the skin. And that's just to help push the vitamin D levels. However, there isn't any clear evidence yet to suggest that vitamin D deficiency is the root cause for more of the impact of COVID-19. But it's something that I know has come up, and there is no harm for those within those groups from taking the vitamin D because it's actually recommended and it's on the NHS website to take it within the winter months from October to March. So those are some of the theories that have come up and some of the issues that have been highlighted and raised, yes, as factors that have contributed to the impact of COVID.
So as a consultant doctor, your information today has been invaluable. We've heard it all before, but to reiterate the importance of looking after yourself, understanding from a BAME background where you sit, and the importance of being aware and having correct information. We want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts at New Star Radio for taking your time to call in and inform the listening public. Do you have any last words?
Thank you very much for having me and for the fantastic work you're doing in New Star Radio. I think it's amazing to see that people can access, as you just said, the right information. I just want to encourage everybody to always talk to a trusted person, within your community. When you're not sure, we're here in public health. We have contacts within the local community. Please do continue to drop us a line. more importantly, the information we share on social media, I just want to encourage people to take more responsibility and never share when you're not sure, because I think, it's always very difficult sometimes to tell the truth from the fake news. And more importantly, can we please encourage as many people to please take the vaccine?
Right.
We're very fortunate in this country to have those vaccines readily available. They're the last resort, I think, for now that we have, apart from obviously following the rules, hand, face, good ventilation as we try and mix a bit more if we have good weather. And I just hope everybody stays safe.
We're looking forward to the good weather. Thank you so much for you calling. This has been the New Star Radio special awareness show of the vaccine, supported by the Near Neighborhoods Projects and its Birmingham coordinator, Rabbi Latif. Right, as we wind down the show, we want to thank Tony Kelly and Caddy Wilson, and we want to hear your last thoughts, especially some on what was said by the doctor consultant. As we wind down to the top of the hour, Caddy, if you'd like to say your last remarks.
I definitely want to say, first of all, thank you for having me. And exactly what Tony Kelly said, you know yourself, you know your body, just eat good, do your exercise, feel good, do good, and, just stay blessed, keep washing your hands and all those good things, that we know and most of us do anyway. But pro-choice is the key. Do your research. Yes. But be comfortable. I feel that the government are going to put so many things in place to make you have to take the vaccine, and but we will see what happens. Ask me again in another 12 months if I've taken it. We'll see.
Very important to inform yourself.
My last thought would be, I'm going to keep it very brief, is health checks. We take our car or motor vehicle to go and get it MOT tested once a year. Now that car is a piece of metal or a piece of junk. Your body, given to you by Jah, Jehovah, Allah, God, whoever you worship, is far more important. And I'm urging black people to go once a year and get their health checks done. That will determine whether you have this, that, or the other complaint, or what you need to do or not do. So the importance of yearly health checks is of paramount importance within this scheme of things. Thank you. Thanks for having me.